4:30 a.m., the 6th of June 1944, the English Channel heaves in the dark. Diesel fumes hang thick inside the landing craft. Cold spray lashes steel ramps slick with salt and oil. Men vomit quietly over the side. Others whisper prayers. Rifle bolts are checked again and again with trembling hands. Somewhere beyond the black horizon, naval guns thunder, low, rolling concussions that shudder through the hull. The ramp chains rattle. The coxswain shouts over the engine. And in the grey distance, flashes ripple along the French coast. The largest amphibious invasion in history has begun. More than 156,000 Allied troops are crossing to Normandy that morning. Americans toward Utah and Omaha, British and Canadians toward Gold, Juno, and Sword. Over 5,000 vessels crowd the channel. Paratroopers from the US 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions and the British 6th Airborne have already dropped inland in the early hours, scattered by flak and cloud, fighting in hedgerows and flooded fields to seize bridges and block German counterattacks. On Omaha Beach, the tide is rising. German machine guns, positioned on bluffs and in reinforced concrete bunkers of the Atlantic Wall, open fire. Bullets snap across the surf. Men disappear beneath the waves, dragged down by equipment weighing over 60 pounds. Engineers struggle forward with Bangalore torpedoes to blast gaps in barbed wire and mines. The first waves suffer devastating losses. Units lose officers within minutes. For a moment, confusion threatens to freeze the assault in place, but small groups push through. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Canham of the 116th Infantry famously urges his men forward under fire. Naval destroyers edge dangerously close to shore, firing point-blank at German strongpoints. By afternoon, fragile footholds begin to link. The price is staggering. On D-Day alone, the Allies suffer approximately 10,000 casualties, including over 4,000 confirmed dead. German losses are estimated between 4,900. Meanwhile, at Utah Beach, strong currents push American forces off course, accidentally landing them in a less defended sector. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., landing with the first wave, calmly decides to start the war from right here. The beachhead stabilizes more quickly. In the skies, Allied aircraft roar overhead. More than 11,000 planes support the invasion. Bombers strike rail lines and artillery positions deep inland, isolating Normandy from rapid reinforcement. The Luftwaffe, once dominant over Europe, appears only sporadically. Germany's air power has been worn down by years of attrition and relentless strategic bombing. Yet the German command structure is paralyzed by confusion. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, tasked with strengthening coastal defenses, is away in Germany on June 6. Adolf Hitler, asleep when the invasion begins, delays releasing armored reserves because he believes a larger landing may still come at Pas-de-Calais. The Allied deception plan, Operation Fortitude, has worked. Fake armies, inflatable tanks, false radio traffic, and double agents have convinced German intelligence that Normandy might be a diversion, and so precious hours slip away. By nightfall, the Allies hold all 5 beaches, not securely, not cleanly, but undeniably. The lodgement is fragile. Supplies must pour in. Artificial Mulberry harbours will soon be assembled off the coast to compensate for the lack of a captured deep-water port. A vast logistical artery must be built across open sand still within artillery range. Because D-Day is not victory. It is only the opening breach. In the weeks that follow, the fighting grinds into something brutal and intimate. The Norman bocage, dense hedgerows lining sunken lanes, turns every field into a fortress. German units, including elements of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend and Panzer Lehr, counterattack fiercely. Tanks duel at close range. Infantry fight yard by yard. Casualties mount under a summer sun heavy with dust and cordite. Cherbourg, a vital port on the Cotentin Peninsula, falls to US forces on June 26 after intense fighting, though the Germans sabotage its facilities before surrendering. British and Canadian forces push slowly toward Cannes, facing determined resistance. Operation Goodwood in July sees one of the largest British armoured offensives of the war, hundreds of tanks advancing under massive air bombardment. Gains are limited. Losses are heavy. The breakout finally comes in late July with Operation Cobra. After a concentrated carpet bombing by US heavy bombers near St. Lo, American forces punch through weakened German lines. General George S. Patton's Third Army, activated on August 1st, surges into Brittany and then wheels east in a sweeping advance. German forces, stretched thin and under constant air attack, begin to retreat, but not fast enough. By mid-August, Allied armies attempt to encircle them near the town of Falaise. The Falaise pocket becomes a killing ground. Artillery pounds congested roads. Allied aircraft strafe columns of vehicles trapped below. Thousands of German soldiers are killed or captured, though a portion escapes eastward through narrowing gaps. Paris rises in revolt on August 19th. French resistance fighters seize key buildings. On August 25th, Free French forces under General Philippe Leclerc enter the city, followed by US troops. German commander General Dietrich von Koltitz defies Hitler's orders to destroy Paris before surrendering. The city is liberated, largely intact. Across Western Europe, the German front collapses with startling speed. Brussels falls on September 3rd. Antwerp the next day. The pace feels unstoppable. Allied soldiers speak openly of being home by Christmas. But the war is not finished. Supply lines stretch thin across France. Fuel shortages slow armoured divisions. The port of Antwerp, though captured, cannot be used until the Scheldt estuary is cleared of German control, a costly campaign that will take months. Meanwhile, German forces retreat toward their fortified western border, the Siegfried Line, and behind that line, something dangerous is forming. Because Adolf Hitler is not preparing to surrender. He is preparing to strike back. Deus Autumn settles over Europe and leaves begin to fall across the Ardennes forests. German planners gather around maps in guarded headquarters. Panzer divisions are refitted. Fuel is hoarded. Orders are whispered, not broadcast. The Allies, confident and advancing, do not yet see the storm building in the snow-covered hills. They will soon, and when it breaks, it will be the largest battle ever fought by the United States Army, a desperate gamble that will decide whether the road to Germany remains open or is slammed shut in fire and steel. The first snow falls silently over the Ardennes in early December 1944. Frost stiffens canvas tents. Engines cough in the cold. American soldiers along the thinly held front line believe this sector is quiet, a place to rest and refit after months of relentless advance across France. Patrols move through pine forests wrapped in fog. Artillery is sparse. Ammunition is limited. It feels like the edge of the war. Before dawn on the 16th of December, 1944, that illusion shatters to T5-30 am. More than 1,600 German guns open fire in a coordinated barrage stretching nearly 80 miles. The forest explodes in orange flashes. Shells rip through trees, sending splinters scything through foxholes. Telephone lines snap. Command posts go dark. In the confusion, German infantry and panzer divisions surge forward through the snow. Hitler's plan, codenamed Rhine, aims to split Allied lines, seize Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace in the west. Nearly 200,000 German troops, supported by around 1,000 tanks and assault guns, drive into what becomes known as the Battle of the Bulge. The initial assault hits inexperienced and exhausted American units. In places, resistance collapses under the weight of surprise. German armoured columns push deep, creating a dangerous bulge in the Allied front line on maps back at Supreme Headquarters. But the weather, which had grounded Allied aircraft, begins to clear and time, precious, irreplaceable time, slips through German fingers. T. St. Vith and Elsenborn Ridge, American units dig in and delay key roads. Their resistance disrupts the German timetable. Meanwhile, at a small Belgian crossroads town called Bastogne, elements of the 101st Airborne Division and other units are rushed in to hold the junction. By December 21st, Bastogne is surrounded. German forces demand surrender. The reply from Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe is famously concise: nuts. The defenders endure freezing temperatures, dwindling medical supplies, and constant artillery fire. Wounded men lie in cellars. Snow blankets foxholes. German tanks probe the perimeter. On December 23rd, the skies clear. Allied aircraft roar overhead. C-47s dropping supplies by parachute, fighter bombers striking German positions and fuel convoys. The Luftwaffe attempts a desperate counterstroke on January 1st, 1945, attacking Allied airfields in the Low Countries during Operation Bodenplatte. It destroys or damages hundreds of aircraft on the ground, but at a catastrophic cost in experienced German pilots. Losses the Luftwaffe cannot replace. Fuel becomes Germany's enemy. Many panzers literally run dry in frozen fields. Allied resistance stiffens. General George S. Patton pivots his Third Army northward in a remarkable maneuver, relieving Bastogne on December 26 after a rapid 90-degree turn in advance. By late January 1945, the Bulge is erased. Germany has expended its last strategic reserve in the west. Casualties are immense, approximately 19,000 American dead, over 47,000 wounded, and thousands captured. German losses are comparable or higher, with irreplaceable armoured vehicles and trained soldiers gone. The Western Front stabilizes briefly. But now the Allies prepare to cross into Germany itself. Meanwhile, in the east, the Red Army is advancing with overwhelming force. On the 12th of January, 1945, the Soviets launch the Vistula-Oder offensive. Massive artillery barrages precede armored thrusts that shatter German lines in Poland. Within weeks, Soviet forces advance hundreds of kilometers, reaching the Oder River. Just 70 kilometers from Berlin, Germany is being squeezed from both sides. Back in the west, Allied planners focus on the Rhine, the last great natural barrier before the German heartland. Hitler orders bridges destroyed if retreat becomes necessary. Defensive lines are manned by a mix of hardened veterans, Volksgrenadier divisions, and teenage boys and elderly men drafted into the Volkssturm. On the 7th of March, 1945, something unexpected happens. Elements of the U.S. 9th Armored Division approach the town of Remagen. Ahead looms the Ludendorff Bridge across the Rhine. German engineers have wired it for demolition. Charges have already been set, but the bridge is still standing, under fire. American troops rush forward. German demolition attempts partially damage the structure but fail to bring it down. Soldiers sprint across planks and twisted steel as machine gun bullets spark against girders. Engineers work frantically to disable remaining explosives. Within hours, the United States has established a bridgehead across the Rhine. The capture of the Ludendorff Bridge shocks German high command. Hitler orders executions of officers he blames for failing to destroy it. Though the bridge collapses 10 days later due to structural damage, the Allies have already ferried thousands of troops across. Additional crossings soon follow in massive, coordinated operations like Operation Plunder, led by Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery on March 23-24. Germany's western defenses crumble under relentless pressure. Cities become battlegrounds. Cologne falls. So does Mainz. Industrial centers of the Ruhr, the heart of German war production, are encircled in April. In the Ruhr pocket, over 300,000 German troops are captured. Strategic bombing continues overhead. Factories, rail hubs, oil refineries, all targeted. Germany's ability to wage mechanized war collapses under shortages of fuel and raw materials. Civilian populations endure devastation. Rubble fills streets. Air raid sirens wail through shattered neighborhoods, and yet, the regime orders continued resistance. Hitler, increasingly isolated in Berlin, issues commands to divisions that no longer exist. Communications fracture. Reality bends inside the Führerbunker. Meanwhile, American and Soviet forces move steadily toward each other across central Germany. On the 25th of April, 1945, near the Elbe River at Torgau, patrols from the U.S. 69th Infantry Division meet soldiers of the Soviet 58th Guards Rifle Division. Photographs capture handshakes on a ruined bridge, a symbolic closing of the ring around Nazi Germany. The Reich is physically cut in two. Berlin now lies exposed, encircled by Soviet armies advancing from multiple directions. In the west, Allied forces pause at the Elbe in accordance with prior agreements. The final assault on the German capital will come from the east. Inside Berlin, artillery can already be heard in the distance. Civilians crowd into subway tunnels. Makeshift barricades rise across streets. The once grand capital is reduced to a maze of debris and smoke. And beneath it all, in reinforced concrete chambers beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler prepares for an ending he has long refused to imagine. The guns are closing in. The question is no longer whether Germany will fall, but how much more blood will be spilled before it does. The 20th of April, 1945, 3:30 p.m. artillery shells crash into Berlin in steady, earth-shaking waves. Plaster rains from ceilings. Windows implode in sharp bursts of glass. Smoke drifts through shattered streets where trams lay overturned and trees are splintered into jagged stumps. The ground trembles with each Soviet barrage. Civilians hurry through rubble with buckets of water and bundles of blankets. The air smells of brick dust, cordite, and burning timber. It is Adolf Hitler's 56th birthday. Above ground, the capital of the Third Reich is encircled. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's first Belarusian front attacks from the east and north. Marshal Ivan Konev's first Ukrainian front pushes from the south. More than 2 million Soviet soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, are converging on the city in what will become the Battle of Berlin. Inside the Führerbunker, 55 feet beneath the Reich Chancellery Garden, Hitler moves stiffly through narrow corridors lit by harsh electric bulbs. Witnesses later describe his left hand trembling, his posture stooped, his face grey. Maps are unrolled across tables. Orders are issued to phantom divisions. Counterattacks are demanded from formations that no longer exist. Reality is collapsing faster than the walls above. By the 22nd of April, Soviet forces have broken through outer defenses and are fighting in Berlin suburbs. Hitler explodes in rage during a military conference, declaring the war lost. Yet he refuses to flee. He speaks of loyalty, betrayal, destiny. He insists he will remain in the capital. Street fighting intensifies. Soviet infantry advance block by block, supported by self-propelled guns firing directly into buildings. German defenders, regular army units, SS formations, and Volkswehr militia resist from cellars and upper floors. Panzer-forced anti-tank weapons flash from windows at close range. Casualties mount on both sides. The city becomes a maze of sniper fire and sudden explosions. Meanwhile, to the south, American forces continue their advance through Bavaria. Concentration camps are being uncovered. Buchenwald on April 11th, Dachau on April 29th. Soldiers who have fought for months now confront scenes of unimaginable suffering. Emaciated survivors. Stacks of bodies. The full scale of the regime's crimes is becoming visible in stark, undeniable detail. In northern Germany, British forces push toward the Baltic. Hamburg falls. Bremen follows. The Reich is fragmenting into isolated pockets of resistance. On the 25th of April, Soviet troops complete the encirclement of Berlin. There is no escape route left. Inside the bunker, Hitler marries Eva Braun shortly after midnight on the 29th of April. A brief ceremony. Witnesses sign documents. Champagne is served. Above them, artillery continues to pound the city. Later that day, Hitler dictates his political testament. He blames generals, blames the Jews, blames the war itself, but never himself. He appoints Grand Admiral Karl Donitz as his successor on the 30th of April, 1945. As Soviet troops fight within a few hundred meters of the bunker, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun take their own lives. According to eyewitness accounts later given by bunker survivors, Hitler shoots himself while Braun ingests cyanide. Their bodies are carried up to the Chancellery Garden, doused in petrol, and burned in a shell crater as Soviet artillery continues to fall. The man who had plunged Europe into catastrophe is dead. But the fighting does not stop instantly. Joseph Goebbels, appointed Chancellor in Hitler's testament, remains in Berlin. On the 1st of May, he and his wife poison their 6 children before taking their own lives. That same day, German General Helmuth Weidling, commander of Berlin's defenses, begins negotiations with Soviet forces. On the 2nd of May, 1945, Berlin formally surrenders. Elsewhere, German forces continue to lay down arms. In Italy, surrender has already taken effect on the 2nd of May after negotiations in late April. In northern Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands, German troops surrender to Field Marshal Montgomery on 4 May. Finally, in the early hours of the 7th of May, 1945, at General Dwight D. Eisenhower's headquarters in Reims, France, General Alfred Jodl signs the unconditional surrender of all German armed forces. The document stipulates that hostilities will cease at 11:01 p.m. Central European Time on 8 May. A second signing takes place in Berlin on the 8th of May to satisfy Soviet demands for a ceremony on German soil. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel signs before representatives of the Allied powers. The war in Europe is over. Across London, crowds flood Trafalgar Square. In Paris, church bells ring. In New York, ticker tape falls from skyscrapers. On the 8th of May, 1945, Victory in Europe Day, VE Day, is declared. Winston Churchill addresses the British nation. In the United States, President Harry S. Truman dedicates victory to the memory of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had died just weeks earlier on April 12, yet celebration carries a shadow. Entire cities lie in ruins. An estimated 70 to 85 million people have died worldwide in the conflict. In Europe alone, millions are displaced, prisoners of war, forced laboris, refugees moving along shattered roads with what little they can carry. Germany is divided into occupation zones controlled by the United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, and France. Berlin itself is partitioned. The alliance that defeated Nazi Germany is already straining under ideological differences that will soon shape a new global tension, the Cold War. But for now, in May 1945, the guns fall silent across Europe. Factories that once produced tanks and aircraft will be dismantled or rebuilt. Scientists who developed rockets and jet engines will be studied, recruited, or prosecuted. The war has accelerated technology, radar, long-range rocketry, advanced submarines, innovations born from destruction that will shape the modern world. The lessons are heavier. From the beaches of Normandy to the streets of Berlin, the final year of the war in Europe revealed both the capacity for organized violence and the resilience of ordinary people caught in its path. Soldiers who landed in darkness on the 6th of June, 1944 marched nearly 1,000 miles to the heart of Germany. Many did not return home. Many who survived carried memories that never truly faded. The fall of Germany was not a single moment. It was a slow tightening of a vice, military, industrial, moral. A collapse brought about not only by overwhelming force, but by years of strategic decisions, alliances, resistance movements, intelligence operations, and relentless sacrifice. Today, when we look at restored footage, the grain sharpened, the faces clearer, the war feels closer. More human. The young paratrooper adjusting his helmet. The tank crewman wiping soot from his goggles. The civilian stepping cautiously into sunlight after days underground. They were not history yet. They were simply living through it, and as we trace the path from D-Day to Berlin, from the thunder of naval guns to the silence of surrender, one question lingers quietly beneath the images. What does it take for a world to rebuild after it has torn itself apart? And are we listening closely enough to the echoes left behind?
Thanks for watching this chapter of World War II. If you find this video helpful, please support us by liking and dropping a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch the next chapter of this series. Until then, take care.